is great to be here. Now, like literally, it's great to be in Tri-Cities. It's great to be in Pastor. It's great to be at Faith. But to be here, this was like our home when we were youth pastors in this room right here. And so I'm thrilled to be. Thanks for being out here tonight. I was ready. Totally fine. It was just like me, my wife, and my girls tonight. So I'd be like, okay, that's all right. You're going to hear the Enneagram again. Let's go for it. And it's so cool to have all of you out here too. Here's how it works. Y'all probably know this, but just so you don't feel weird about it, is we're gonna buzz through to about 5:30 tonight, and then we'll pick it up tomorrow night. So you got that packet of stuff. There is no test. You don't have to fill it all out. Some of you don't want to fill it out. Some of you do. And I could probably guess your numbers based on just that. That's all right. We'll get to that. That's a tool if you want it. So no pressure. Snacks. I know we're all different learners. So I don't assume everyone's a 90-minute stare at somebody learner. If you are, perfect. They're set up well. If you're a pacer, pace away. If you're a bathroom breaker, break away. You don't need to and you just do you. You just do you. And so for some reason, if you can't get here tomorrow night, we're going to not be able to finish tonight. We'll walk through it, but that's why these notes would be helpful. You could grab someone. Maybe in the next day, as you learn some of this tonight, you're like, oh man, I wish so-and-so was here. You can certainly bring them tomorrow too. So it's not like something where they have to be all. But what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this tool of the Enneagram. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about why this is a tool how it's impacted my life. So tonight, here's where we're going. We're going to do a lot about setup of why I think there's value here. We're going to then get into the types. There's 9 different types. We'll probably get into maybe 3 of them tonight and then wrap it up tomorrow night. We're going to have question and answers at the end. If you've got a question and it's not the end, you certainly could raise your hand, right? And then I'll just do my best to moderate to make sure we pace our way that we're going to cover this next couple nights. But you can certainly do that. But I'll take time for questions after. So if you prefer to write it down and save it to the end, totally cool. If you're just like, interrupt me, and that's totally fine too. It's no big deal. So that's kind of the deal. So the Enneagram, let me give you more information you need to know. A couple things is the Enneagram let me give a very, very basic where we best come up with this thing. Early desert fathers, which is the Essenes. If you study like Christian scripture, there's some very early remnants of the Essenes in Scripture. These were kind of the people who were very pure. So you get the Pharisees, which were the rule people, right? In Scripture, they were the rule people. But then you got the Essenes, who they're philosophers and they were purists, and so they would separate themselves from society. Okay, so they were like Amish before Amish were Amish. Okay, so this was like back in the day. And if you're Amish, it's no offense, it's paying tribute. Okay, so you have these desert fathers. They lived in these communities, and these communities were Christ-centric communities. And so what they did is they began to teach a catechism. If you're familiar with catechism, or confirmation, some mainline denominations we'll go through confirmation. Basically, here's our Christian beliefs 101, and we're going to have kids memorize these things, right? And you are now an official adult Christian when you understand these basic tenets of faith. The early desert fathers, they took a collection of sins in Scripture, okay? So if you've read like different proverbs or different lists in Scripture, you're going to see a couple different times it'll say, here are 7 things the Lord hates, nay, there are 8 of them. I mean, that kind of thing. So there'll be like a couple different lists. And so there's not like the 9 sins. Have you heard of a cardinal sin? You heard of a cardinal sin? Where I come from in Springfield, a cardinal sin is when they lose to the Cubs. Okay, but a cardinal rule These are like sins that are like, these are big deals. These are some of the basic sins that you need to avoid at all costs. Well, these were the version for the early desert fathers of, they believed there were 9 basic sins. So it's kind of like a botanist for sin. So if they looked at all of nature and they had to categorize sin, instead of having here's 150 ways to sin, they would say, really the root of them, there's like 9 basic ways to sin. And they would take every type of sin and they would categorize them. Now, is that, does Jesus talk about here are the 9 sins? No, they take this from a collection of different sins that are listed in the Bible. Things the Lord hates, different sins, and just kind of categorize them. And they came up with 9 of them. These are 9 things that these kids would memorize and learn. And they would be taught that if you give into any of these things, you are going to sabotage your faith. And so you got to avoid these things as a Christ follower. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at these, which is kind of funny because, I ended up getting my doctorate a couple of years ago in organizational leadership, where my dissertation was using the Enneagram as a management tool. And so part of it, and I want specifically in the church. And so part of for the dissertation is I had to get hundreds and hundreds of church pastors from across the nation, different sized churches and all sorts of things, to be able to take the Enneagram test, and we're going to walk through it. And that was part of my research and survey. Well, it was really difficult to, one, contact a whole bunch of pastors and have them contact me back. And secondly, find a pool enough people who would say, yeah, I'm going to take a test online. And I would give them a link, hey, take this test. And as part of my research. Well, some of them would be like, I can't do the Enneagram. I don't want to participate. And I'd be like, okay. Like, do you have like an exclusive contract with the disc profile? Like, what's the deal? Like, they'd be like, no, it's like new age. It's bad. And so maybe you've heard that kind of thing. And here's why people would say that, is because it's a tool that has been used by all types of people in all walks of life, specifically the last 150 years out in the East, in the Far East. And so it's been a tool that's been utilized. And so a lot of people who are very much into all things New Age, that's a tool that's utilized as well. But that doesn't make the tool New Age. It's a tool that if you want to go like big time roots, it's a tool of learning what the sins are in Scripture. And so a lot of people be like, I think I hear that's bad. And I'm like, I get it. Enneagram sounds like pentagram. Okay, I get it. So it's very, very scary sounding word. And if you look at the 9 types, the way a lot of them, it almost looks like a pentagram. Totally get it, right? It's not. So we would have to walk through what this 9-sided tool is. So if you're talking about this, you get excited about something, you learn something, you feel like God's showing you a part of you, and you're sharing with somebody in the next couple of weeks, and someone who's a Christian is well concerned about your soul, all of a sudden they're like, I heard that's like the devil's dating profile, right? It's just so you understand they're not bad, but they're also not right. It is a neutral tool, and that's why you can like totally Enneagram trump them and just be like, yeah, did you know where it originated? Or from the desert fathers? It is a catechism, and we are redeeming. We are taking back what the devil stole from us. And so whatever you need to do. So that's the Enneagram. Let me also talk about a couple things. There's a lot of ways to take the Enneagram test. And so you can go online and maybe, how many of you have taken an Enneagram test? You have an idea of a number? Okay. I would say this. Online, there's the Wagner Enneagram test is the one I recommend. It's a $10 test. It's not that it's any better than others. Here's what makes an Enneagram test worthwhile. The more questions they ask, the more accurate they're going to get. All it is computer spit out, right? So when you hit this button, it triggers this response, and when you hit enough of these buttons, it spits this out. So it's science, right? As far as how they read off the information. So the more questions in the test, the more the less variance there's going to be. It's just data, right? So you can take like a 20-question test, find out your Enneagram in 5 minutes, and absolutely free. Sure, great. And they might, in 20 questions, they might be able to help you understand what's the best type for you to focus on. And they might not. Like it's whatever. So the difference, what test is a good test?
any test that asks you enough questions where you're not like playing the psychology of test taking, like here's what I want people to think, which probably says a lot about your number. But bottom line is when you can, the most accurate way to understand your number is have someone who knows you real well take your test for you with you in mind. Because they're not lying. They don't care what it says. They're just going to say the truth, right? So, because we all have this psychology that we bring to the table. So, anyway, those are tests. So you don't, in the Wagner one, it's validated research. All that means is they've done enough research on it where they've got the validation stamp, and they're one of the first ones to do it. So that's the test. But it's like the DISC profile will tell you, a different personality. You got the Myers-Briggs. It'll talk to you about relationship with others, how you handle that. Disney princess test will tell you, all the tests have value. Enneagram is this. Enneagram is going to tell you the why. Enneagram is going to help you understand the why you do what you do. So it's different. And understand this as well. People get weird about the Enneagram, because Enneagram's trendy like the last couple of years. It wasn't. It's old. It's like 1,800 years old. And it was like used a lot, like I said, in the Far East in the 1800s and whatnot, and then kind of brought back over through a lot of psychologists in the 1900s. But the root of it and the purpose of it is to help us be aware of the shadow inside of us. And so think about it. It is saying this is the sin of the 9 sins. This is the sin that's most likely to sabotage your marriage. So, is that something to brag about? I'm a 3. The thing that's going to take my marriage down, deceit. Yep, I'm a 3. You? It's not something to brag about. It's not like, you're totally in this number. Okay, it's a sin, right? Think about what is the thing that could be an obstacle for God's best in my life? What's the thing that could bring the biggest dysfunction in my life? And here's the beauty about this Enneagram. Okay, the Enneagram is a tool that helps us understand predictable behavior when I get stressed. And so let's just have fun for a second. How many eye colors are there in America? Or in the world? Let's expand it in the world. How many eye colors are there? More than 20? Less than 20? Less than 10? Any guesses? 5? Higher or lower? Price is Right with me? Less? Less than 10? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We should Google that, okay? But it's not a lot. It's not like 150. Like, when's the last time you saw someone's eyes and you're like, I've never seen that color in my life? What do you call that? Like, that's usually they've taken something they shouldn't if their eyes look like that, right? How many hair colors are there? Take away L'Oreal, okay? But you know what I'm saying? Like, natural hair colors are there. It's not like an endless supply. And I hate to break this to you, but personalities are pretty predictable as well. You're not unique, snowflake, okay? It's like, you're not. Is you can easily fit into a fairly predictable pattern of behavior, especially when stressed. Let me go into my why, and then we're going to dive into some of these notes, because some of you right now are already like getting stressed because we haven't gotten to that feelings, but we'll talk about you in a second. Okay, so about 5 years ago, I was, so my work environment, I'm a pastor, right? So I was in a work environment where I was experiencing a lot of stress. Now, if you would ask me if I was stressed, I would say that's actually one of the greatest gifts that I have is I don't get stressed. I don't get stressed. I never feel like I'm stressed. If you asked me that 5 years ago, I'd be like, nah, I'm not stressed. Too blessed to be stressed, right? I'm feeling like I didn't understand what stress was in my life because I felt like stress looked a certain thing, and I didn't know. And so I was out, I was out golfing. I was speaking at a conference in Seattle. And so I was out golfing the morning of a conference, and I'm thinking like I'm having a heart attack. And I'm like, okay, this is really bad. I'm not doing well. It's getting worse. I keep talking to the guys I'm golfing with. I'm like, man, I think I'm dying. I think I got a punctured lung. I'm like going all hypochondriac on myself. And they just keep looking at me, and I was so annoyed because they're like, I think you're fine, man. Like, I don't think you're having a heart attack. And I'm like, that is so insensitive. Like, because I'm dying, and they're not even believing me. And so we get to this spot where we're golfing. All of a sudden, I'm passing out. I'm going out. I crawl to the ground so I don't hit my head. I know enough to do that, right? And I'm laying to die. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I need an ambulance. And I had never called for an ambulance in my life, but I needed one now. And they're like, "I don't think you need an ambulance." I'm like, "I need an ambulance." And they wouldn't give me one. And so I hitched a ride to the clubhouse, called my sister-in-law, because Leanne was on the road to Oregon. I was like, "Hey, Leanne, I don't think I'm doing well. You got to turn around from Oregon." And so her sister gave me a ride to urgent care. I get to urgent care, and I'm like, "I'm out," right? And they're like, "Oh my word," They call across the street. They're like, "I need an ambulance. I need one stat." I'm texting my girls. I'm literally texting them from the back of an ambulance. "I love you. I love being your dad." And I'm thinking, this is it. This is it. And so we get there, and they start doing the tests, like, physical tests and stuff. And they're like, "You're not having a heart attack." I was like, "Cool. Awesome." And I get out of the hospital, and I go and speak that night. And I'm like, that was a funny story. It was great. I was able to laugh with the guys about it. Didn't even think about, that's odd. Okay, that's odd behavior to go from I'm dying to I'm great. Happened again. So a couple of weeks later, I'm at the hospital and thinking I'm dying. And I go in the ER doc, and this was back home. And the doctor happened to be a friend. And he goes, "I got bad news for you. It ain't your heart." He goes, "It's your head." He goes, "Eventually it'll be your heart. Give it a little more time. But right now it's in your head, and you need help." And I'm like, okay, I don't believe in that. Okay, so I've got victory over that. So I don't, but I'll go see a therapist. And I never, so I called someone. I said, I need to find someone who. I need an executive therapist, not just a therapist. I need an executive therapist. And so I got an executive therapist, and he says, I said, "I got to fix this." I'm like, he thinks it's my head. Can I get in there in the morning? So by the morning, I'm meeting with this dude. And so first thing he does, he gives me an Enneagram test. I'm like, okay. And so I take the test. He gives me the results, and we meet the next week over these results, and he's reading this to me, and he's reading into my soul. And I'm like, "You sorcerer, where did you get this information?" And he's just like, "Bro, you're a type 3. This is what stresses you out." He's like, "This isn't rocket science. I'm just showing you things that you're not able to see right now. But now when you understand what makes you stressed, why you're reacting this way, then you don't need to live in this crazy fog." And when I look back on it, man, I had for months and months been so stressed, literally in a fetal position in between services, wondering, can I go out there and speak again? Can I go and function this? Can I meet? I clear my calendar for months of I don't even have the ability, the capacity to sit and meet with you. I can't go to the grocery store right now because I don't know I just was in such a dark spot in my mind. And I'm like, this is my new normal. I don't know what I'm going to do. And when he walked me through the Enneagram, it wasn't a quick miracle, but it was the beginning of tools to help me understand who God created me to be, why I was freaking out, and how do I recognize that and not let that be a lid in my life. I share my story not because my story is important. I share my story because your story is important. And I think it's going to be, for some of you, that clear. You're going to be like, "Oh my word." I all of a sudden realized I've been parenting wrong this whole time. I've been trying to make a bunch of mini-me's, not having a clue what that's doing to them. Not having a clue. Thinking they're slow learners. I've been married to someone who's probably lived in constant tension of me expecting them to act like me. And I didn't understand. So we're gonna dive in. Now, I've been scouring for an athlete. You're wearing a ping house. I'm guessing you're kind of athletic. Okay, you like to think so. Okay, so we're gonna play a game of catch. Okay, so what we're doing is we're communicating. How many of you ever played dodgeball before? Okay, you know they've made that illegal in a lot of states. But seriously, they outlawed dodgeball as a PE option. They say it makes kids feel insecure and inferior. Which I'm like, if you're going to eliminate stuff that makes kids feel insecure and inferior, how about you start with math? Okay, but anyway, so the dodgeball. Some people use words like a weapon, like a dot, and I'm not going to throw this at you. Okay, so you're just like, okay, but some people when they communicate, it is like intentionally trying to just dig into you, right? That's why they're trying to. They say something. Sometimes it's easy for me to pick on the anonymous person. Some people do that, right? Here's the truth. Sometimes I have parented that way. I know if I say, and if you don't believe me, you can ask my girls, okay? I know if I say this, conversation's over. I've just dug the knife in. Now I might not feel great about it, but I will win this moment right now. That's been so like, and it's effective. It's not healthy. But if my job is to get them in the car right now, I can use this as a dodgeball. If my job is to get you to shut up, I can use this as a dodgeball. People at work have used words like this with you. You know what that feels like. Truth is, you probably have too. Okay? That's not healthy communication. Healthy communication is, I share something, you share something. So here's where the athletics go. I toss something to him, he received what I tossed. Now he tosses it back. And I receive what he taught. And we just do this. We have this little, what we call it dialogue. It's just back and forth. And I'm sharing, he's sharing. It's great. Now here's the problem. We don't play catch with the same tool. So here's really what we're doing. Okay, why are we going to talk about Enneagram? Careful. Okay. Oh, he's right. Okay. I tossed him some Play-Doh. He tosses it back. He tossed me this. But now I get to decide what he really meant by this. And I'm going to shape this however I wanted to shape it. And then I could say, why in the world did you send that to me? He says, I didn't send that to you. And I'm like, yes, you did. They say this, communication. 7% is word content. 38% is body tone, tone of voice. Tone of voice is 38. 55 is body language. 7% words, 38% tone of voice, 55% body language. We don't live in a generation where we do a lot of that now. Now what we do is we post, right? And we text. You all know that weird person who still calls, right? But the rest of us, we text. So here's what's crazy. If only 7% of communication is the word content, that means, so some people say, well, what happens when you're not there in person? And so you don't have the tone of voice and the body language. Does that mean the word content is 100%? No. Albert Moravian, a UCLA psychologist, he's researched this, and he says this. When you just text and when you just post online, have you ever noticed that people are mad online? Have you noticed that? This is like the last decade, okay? It's a thing. Like, how about this one? This is fun. And I don't know if it's you, so if it's you, it's intervention. Okay. Like some people are like, I don't want to have an argument about this. I'm just going to throw this out there, and please do not argue on my post. And then just post something like super divisive. And people are like, rah, 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 and you're like, please take your arguments off my page. Have you seen any of that? Okay. So if not, that's you. Okay, so but here's the deal. Why? Why is everyone so mad? Because in an era of posting and texting, all we have is 7%. And we don't have the 38% of my tone of voice, right? Like, for example, when I say, here, let me give you word content. That's my jam. You don't know what I mean. Like, for all you know, that could be a breakfast conversation. I'm enjoying my breakfast. You reach over the table and grab that from my plate. And I say, that's my jam. For all you know, Megan Trainor came on the radio. I'm all about that bass, about that bass. And I'm like, that's my jam, right? And you don't know. It could be, I'm like getting my toenails done. And the nail technician says, what's that smell? I say, you don't know. You don't know what, all you know is that's my jam, right? You've got to now here's what that 93%. Now that we don't have body language and word tone of voice, it's now the mood of the person who sees the message and the mental model of the person who receives the message. The mood is this. If I'm having a bad day and now I see that person post, I'm having a bad day and now I get that text, and mental model means this. And if you were here this morning, here's what mental model means. I didn't just land here. I traveled here. That means my journey in life puts me at such a different perspective that no matter what you toss me, I can't help but shape it differently. And it's so frustrating when you're like, no, see the world like I do. This is how I see the world, therefore this is how the world looks. And they're like, I'm sorry. My mental model doesn't even allow me to see it that way. And when you understand your mental model isn't the right way to see the world, it's your way to see the world. And everybody else has a different mental model. When I realized that as a parent, when I realized that as a pastor, when I realized that as a colleague, when I realized that my mental model and your mental model, when I can say something from the pulpit and people hear it differently. They're going to hear it politically. They're going to hear it racially. They're going to hear it whatever. They're going to hear it in a way. They're going to shape it based on it. So that's a preamble, okay? What I want us to talk about is this. How do we bring dignity to the lives of those around us? What if even in just the few moments we have together, you're able to understand there are mental models all around you that don't allow them to receive what you're tossing? Does that mean I write them off and just surround myself with people who only think like me? No. What it means is, wow, what a gift communication is. I must steward it better. How do I parent in a way that they can receive the fullness of God? How do I be a neighbor in that kind of way? How can I serve my community, even outside the church walls, in a way that honors those who don't even see it the way I see it? And it's going to require a lot of growth as we dive into this. It was easy for me. It's easy for me to get to this far where I needed growth because I was very aware I've been in a fetal position on the office couch, not having the courage to go out and speak. I was very aware that I was having conversations with my family and they were being nice, trying to act like we were having conversations, and I could barely function. So I knew I needed to grow, and I needed something. Some of you might be at a disadvantage right now because you're fairly confident the way you see the world is the right way to see the world. So what I want to challenge you to do in our time together is say, God, bring me humility. What if you want to bring to me a new tool, a new gift to understand the world? So we're gonna dive into this. Let's hit a few basics of the Enneagram. It's in your notes. At least let's make some progress in the notes. It's the illusion of progress, okay? So on our notes, if you're filling them out. And if I forget a fill-in, please, especially when we get to you type 1s, okay? Throw something at me. I don't want to be the reason you don't sleep tonight, okay? So please, because I'll sleep well, I won't care. So here we go. The Enneagram is a tool to raise self-awareness of our shadow side. It's not pop psychology. It's not a game you just play at the mall. I wonder what number they are. Okay? Now, it is a fun game. Okay, I recommend it. But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. The Enneagram is a tool to raise my awareness of my own shadow side. The second thing is this. What does the Enneagram provide for leaders? When I say the word leader, I'm not talking about position. I'm talking about anyone who wants to have impact and influence. So you can use the word Christ follower, right? If you want to have influence, okay? Here's what it'll do. It'll show you how you see the world. It will. It's going to show you how you see the world. There's going to be some things you see in here, you're going to be like, oh my word, that's so me, right? It is. It's pretty cool. It's also going to show you how to connect better with others, to better connect with others. Obviously, as we're playing catch with Play-Doh, it allows you to say, okay, here's their natural way to receive communication. How do I get ahead of that? And 3, it'll show you how to grow. It's going to show you how to grow. Let's talk about Galatians 5, 16 through 26. It's not in your outline, but if you want to dive into that, Galatians 5, 16 through 26. Let me read it out of the NIV. It says this. Paul's writing, and he's talking to people, just for context, people who aren't happy about the results of their life. Okay? It's not a self-help letter, but it's a letter for people who would desperately buy a self-help book, right? But it goes deeper than that. It's not, here's 7 strategies to happy living. He says this, so I say, walk by the Spirit, and you won't gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what's contrary to the Spirit what's contrary to the flesh. They're in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want to do. But if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy. These are the things you want to put on your LinkedIn resume. This is kind of bad stuff. Drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this won't inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against these things there is no law. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let's keep in step with the Spirit. What we have is we have a war within us. That shouldn't be new. If you're a follower of Christ, I don't assume everyone here is a follower of Jesus, but if you are, it's not a new concept that you have a war within you. And as a matter of fact, you don't even need to be a follower of Christ to understand that concept. It's kind of the global joke about the angel on one shoulder and the demon on the other, right? We understand the things we don't want to do, we end up doing. The things we do want to do, we don't do. We're crazy torn. Paul talks about it in another letter. So here's what we understand. When we dive into this, we're going to talk about the natural things that we don't want to end up doing, that we end up doing. The other thing I want to talk about is this idea of emotions. Then we're going to dive into some of these types. Emotions are, I want to say something that hopefully for some of you is a challenge. Emotions are a gift from God. Emotions are God's gift to us. Some of you were raised in an environment where you're not allowed to show emotions. Or there were some emotions you're not allowed to show. Some of you are creating an environment where people aren't allowed to show emotions. This is going to be a challenge because emotions are a gift. Christianity isn't about what we do on the outside. It's about the overflow of what's going on the inside. It is possible to do all the good habits of a follower of Jesus without having the heart of Jesus. It's been done a lot. Have you ever seen someone do something crazy? You're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that. They were such a good person. You're like, were they though? Why do we say that? Church attendance, behavior modification. It's hard. And so obviously we have checklists. We don't want to look like a bad person. So here's some behaviors we want to modify. But feelings are important. Feelings are what's going on the inside. And we need to be in tune with what's going on the inside. I know that sounds super soft if you grew up in an environment where this was not encouraged. But let me share it this way. Feelings are like a toddler, okay? Have you ever borrowed a toddler before? Owned one, borrowed one? Okay. So you probably know some basic, if not Wikipedia it. Okay, toddlers basically is this. It's like a toddler in a car. Okay? You don't want to let the toddler drive. Anytime you let the toddler drive, I'd buckle up, okay? This ain't going to end well. Nor do you want to stuff the toddler in the trunk, especially in the summer, okay? We got rules about that kind of thing. You got to live somewhere in the safe zone, somewhere between the trunk and the driver's seat. That's where toddlers go in the car. Emotions are like toddlers. Don't let them drive. Some of your worst decisions, you Ubered your emotions to get there. You did. Think about it. Some of your worst decisions were because you let an emotion drive your train. And you didn't like the destination they took you, and they got there quick. They beat the traffic, didn't they? And some of you learned, okay, in order for my emotions not to drive, I'll just stuff them in the trunk. How's that working for you? Emotions are like a beach ball. And have you ever taken a beach ball and tried to keep it under the water? Like you're just trying to submerge this beach ball and woo, and it's everything is I want to surface. It's going to it's gonna dart to the surface, and you're trying to hold it under, and the pressure's just mounting, right? And I can pretend that you're at the ocean. You've got a beach ball under the water, and you know it's embarrassing to have a beach ball. And you're talking to someone who hates beach balls and would be appalled that you have a beach ball. So you're trying to keep it under the water, and you're having this conversation. You're I can't control it. All of a sudden, boop, this beach ball goes flying up like an old faithful geyser. And people are where did that come from? Those are emotions. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and an emotion came out and you're where did that come from? Someone's having a bad day. And have you ever been there where you're oh, excuse me, did that come from me? I'm embarrassed that came out like that. Emotions. These things that we're going to talk about are like that. You might be phenomenal at behavior modification. You might be so disciplined that these rarely come to the surface. It doesn't mean they're not at war within you. And so we don't stuff them. We don't hide them down. So we're going to dive into each of them. As we look at some of them, let's a couple more basics here. When we get to the individual ones, I did a series on this a couple years ago at our church where I preached a week on every one of these and talked about a different Bible character that we don't know. They didn't take the $10 test, so we don't know how accurate. But our guess is which Bible character really demonstrates some of the struggles of each type. And so we'll walk through some of that as well as we go through this. But with the Enneagram, here's a couple important things. When we become more self-aware, everyone around us wins. Okay? And this is so important. Your kids will win. Honestly, in the next 24 hours, your kids win if we go through this. Your parents win. Think of the most difficult relationships you have right now. Don't point, but think. Okay? They will win if we dive into this. Okay, this is a big deal. Second thing, or another thing here I want to hit is this. The Enneagram is not a label or a lid. It's not a label or a lid. It's a light. It's not a label to be this is me. Oh, that's so me all the time. This is so me. It's not about bragging about your number. Again, remember the root of this. It's bragging about, hey guys, I'm a habitual liar. What are you? Lost you? Huh? Okay, it's not, that's not it's funny how it's so popular. It's not about that. It's also not a lid. For example, I had a conversation last week with somebody. And we're talking in a work setting about a challenge. And the person said, I'm and gave a number. An Enneagram number. Because we use this in our training with our work. And so I can't do this, and this that you're asking me to do. This is really tough for me. I'm oh, you're correct. It is really tough for you, but you're incorrect when you say you can't do that. Okay? You can do that. This is not a lid. You're not off the schneid because you're a number, whatever. It doesn't mean I will always be like this. I got red hair, that's why I'm angry. My dad is Irish, okay? That's not how it works. It's not a label to brag about. It is not a lid to hide behind. It is a light to say, search my heart, oh God. See if there be any wickedness in me. You're joining the psalmist and saying, okay, big time surgery right here. God, if there's something in me that limits what you want to do through me, have at it. I've got 15 years of marriage of practice doing it my way. I'm interested in letting you take over, God. So that's as we dive into this, I think those are going to be helpful. And then another thing about the Enneagram, every number moves based on stress and growth. stress, and growth. So, we're going to give a number. We're going to talk about different characteristics of said number. And the shadow side is the ugly beach ball that comes flying to the surface when you're stressed, predictably. Not all the time, but I'm just saying it's a predictable general pattern of behavior. You're going to respond in this way if you're this number when you're stressed. And when you know that, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's my sign. I'm operating out of stress right now. Not as a lid to say I have to, but now as a light to say, okay, that's the flesh. That's what we talk about in Scripture, the flesh, the evil side of me, right? That's the part of me left unchecked that's going to limit God's potential in my life. And so what I've got to do is I've got to make sure that I submit and surrender. And Paul says it a lot meaner than I do. He says crucify. You got to crucify that part. You got to be, every day, you got to kill that part of you. Every day you got to wake up and kill that part of you. You got to be a serial killer every single day. I die to my flesh today. When I get stressed and I start doing this, nope, I recognize it. I die to that. I surrender to that. And I want to move towards health. I want to move towards growth. Also, the goal is not to become the healthiest version of your number. The goal is to become healthy. It's not even to become, I want to be a healthy 3. That's not the goal. The goal is to be, I want to be a healthy me. When I'm like, what number was Jesus? I don't know, the good part of all of them, I guess. Yeah. It's like, I want to be healthy. So as we dive through, now, in your packets, I'm gonna snag a packet here to borrow, I think towards the end, the back page. Let's dive towards the back page. And this is something we're not going to talk a ton about. We certainly could do Q&A about it. This is what I'm talking about when I say stress and growth. As we go through the numbers, I'm talking about the bigger number in the middle. So like the first one, you got a 4, a 1, and a 7. You're tracking on that top line on the back page. What that means, if you're an Enneagram 1, when you get stressed, you're going to go to the dark side of the 4. Okay? You're going to go to the irrational, moody when you're stressed as a 1. When you grow, you're going to go to the best side of the 7. That doesn't mean a 4 is bad, and if you're a 1 and you're stressed, you're going to be like a 4. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is you have a predictable pattern of behavior when you recognize your type number. When you're stressed, you can just go to the negative list of the number under stress, and that's going to be like what people would describe you as before you have your Snickers bar. Okay, so that's what it is. And then the growth is the healthy side of the other. Every number has, we're going to talk about light and shadow in it as well. Also, one more thing, as general Enneagram deal is you got your type, you got your wing. So when you take a test, you're going to get, like, let's say, here's how you know what number you are. One, like I said, best way to figure out what number you are is, anybody remember? Have someone who knows you well that's not jaded and mad at you at the time, take it for you. Okay? Because they're not trying to get a better score. Okay? So when you take a test and you look at a typical result, it's going to spit out all the numbers, and it's going to say resourceful percentage and non-resource. So it'll be like, you are 87% a 1, you are 72% a, and they're not all going to equal 100. What it means is you tend to have 80 whatever percent of the 1 traits. That doesn't mean, so they're going to say whatever 1 is highest there, they're going to automatically say that's your number. That doesn't necessarily mean it's your number. It's worth investigating, and it certainly means you score high on that. But then you need to go to the next column. It'll say resourceful percentage. That's their word for the good part, okay? Is the best understanding of your number is to say, which number do you score the highest when you're at your A game, okay? When you're on your A game, you're resourceful. What resourceful number is the highest? That might be an indicator that that's your number. Okay, so, and then the second one will be, here is the non-resourceful percentage. So there's going to be 3 scores typically. Here's our overall percentage, and they're going to use that to determine what your highest number is. And then they're going to say you're resourceful, non-resourceful. Non-resourceful are the stress indicators. So let's say when it comes to 1, we'll pick on 1. You've got 87% 1, but only 22% of the positive part and 99% of the negative part. You're like, yeah, we think you're a 1. Okay, maybe you are 1. But as we get healthy, we should eliminate as many of everything on the non-resourceful side as possible. And then you might all of a sudden have another number that scores higher. So does this thing ebb and flow? Sure. Does this thing change based on the role that you work? I think so, because it's behavior. And sometimes it's because we're modifying our behavior based on what we know to be true. That's how you tell your number. Okay, so they're going to say your wing. Wing is a big number in Enneagram stuff, and I'm not really a big fan of it. Like, I don't care about the wing. Wing means this. Let's say you're an Enneagram 3, okay? All the wing means is which of your next door neighbors are you closer with. So if you're a 3, your next door neighbors are a 4 and a 2, because you're a 3, right? Like a clock. So a wing doesn't mean this is my second highest number. All it means is between my next 2 neighbors, the 2 numbers, one on my left and one on my right, which of those am I more like? Okay? So I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm a 3 wing 4. Okay? Great. That doesn't mean, it's not, to me, I don't think it's that big of a deal. If you're super interested in it, there's probably lots of great resources. The Road Back to You is a great book. I know that there's going to be some group, I believe, the discussion and opportunity to dive into this. That's probably my favorite Christian primer on the Enneagram, is The Road Back to You with Ian Cron and Susan Stabile. And there's a lot of work on that. And if you're into wings, awesome. We're not really going to get into that kind of thing, just because I think it's whatever, is what's your Enneagram number. So that's the general stuff. Now we're going to dive into the specific numbers. But before we dive in, has anybody got any general questions about the general thing? We'll get into number stuff specific now, but any general questions that we can help you like go into this portal before we even get there? I don't want to have a blockade up. And we got a microphone if we need to. And any general questions so far, or questions that'll help you really handle this as we dive in? We're totally good. We're totally good. We're totally good. I got lots of questions. Okay. All right, let's go. We're going to dive into 1. Let's go into 1. And is Ellie back there again? Ellie, thank you. I think, you know what? I didn't even know Ellie Neff was like, I don't know how old you were when I was here, but like after the meeting, I was like, Chris was up there playing the guitar. Is Chris around? I don't know, Chris around. He was playing the guitar, right? Like your brother, Chris? Good grief. That's crazy. I like it. Thank you. That's what I was saying. That's a lot of stuff up there. Thank you for doing that. So as we dive into this, let's talk about type 1. Type 1, and there's a lot of different names for these labels, so it's not like these are you might have heard different names for the different types. Whatever. There's a few of each, but these are the ones we're going to go with for this week's purposes. First, we're going to call the perfectionist. Okay? The perfectionist. And for each one, we're going to talk about a darkness, we're going to talk about a death, we're going to talk about a drive. Okay? And then we're going to dive into some characteristics. Okay? So okay, now really quick, I know not everyone knows their number. And if you don't know your number, there's a good chance you'll know your number by the end of our time tomorrow night. Okay? And if not, there's a good chance someone sitting next to you already knows your number by the time tomorrow night. Okay? But again, you can go take a test. But how many of you already know, anybody know you're a type 1? Any type 1s in the place? Any type 1s? Okay. Is that okay? Is that Samson over there? No, where's Samson? What are you?
7.
You're a CPA? That's awesome. Okay, all right. You've just blown my mind already. Okay. So, okay, I was like, man, for sure. Okay, here we go. Type 1. So where are we at again, type 1s? Let me see my type 1s. Let me type 1s. Okay, very good. Awesome. Okay, so here's type 1. Type 1 is the darkness for type 1. Here's the sin, the deadly sin. You ready for this one? This one's fun. I love, especially for type 1s. My oldest daughter is a type 1. Okay, so, no, my youngest daughter is a type 1. I remember, which one's which? Are you Sydney? Yeah, Sydney. Okay, yeah, Sydney she's a type 1. So here we go. The darkness for a type 1 is anger. That's their deadly sin. Where are my type 1s again? Whoop, whoop. Where are you at? Whoop, whoop. Everyone look at them. Sinners! Okay. Is anger is the darkness. Anger is the deadly sin, which you would never guess from a type 1, because type 1s are totally orderly, proper, easiest kids to ever parent, easiest students to ever teach. I'm telling you, type 1s, you probably didn't have your parents have to yell at you a lot, because you know how to conform. And anger is not something you typically erupt in as a type 1. It's there. It's the beach ball underwater. Here's where it comes out. When someone doesn't do something right. You're like, okay, that's not right. That's not fair. That's unjust right there. I have noticed an injustice. I am trying to model justice, but they are not picking up on this justice, and they are breaking rules, and now I'm mad. Okay? I'm mad with a smile. They're the scary type. These are the people who end up on Dateline. I'm telling you, friends, is a type 1 is anger. And what's crazy about a type 1, I can pick on them because their darkness is so unpredictable from the outside. When they blow, it's hilarious. You don't have to scold them. They know it. They go straight to their room. I am so sorry. And they're just like, they feel miserable. They feel miserable. They don't want to do that. But there's this anger that churns. Their death is this being wrong. Being wrong. If you're wondering if you're in a relationship with a type 1 and you want to test said theory, just remind them occasionally that they're wrong and use those words specifically. And see if anger don't come out to play, okay? That's how you can quickly find their friend anger. Okay, it's there. She's there. You just gotta use the right words. You're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. And they don't want to be wrong. Now, they're rarely wrong because being right is so important to them. My family. So Sydney and I, Sydney is a great tennis player. She's one of Springfield's, she's not going to tell you this, was one of Springfield's best high school tennis players. Best one in our high school, I believe. I'm a dad, but also they have rankings, right? So it's there. And so when we're playing fun, she crushes the ball. We can hit rallies, and people around be like, this gal I can play. We play doubles tournament. I'm competitive. We'll get to the threes later. And I'm just like, we're going to win this doubles tournament. I'm playing mental games against the opponents, right? And she's looking at me like I'm wrong. That's not what you do. Don't tell them that they're stepping on the line, okay? She gets nervous. And if I say, like for me, if I'm comparing, like Pastor Daryl and I, we play doubles. We won a doubles tournament, right? And we play doubles. We are just loud, annoying, I'm sure, to the other team, all about the emotion and fired up and just celebrating like crazy. And we'll yell at each other. So when Sydney, if she hit a backhand of the net, I'd be like, Sydney, that's not a backhand. Here's when I'm tossing Sydney that ball. And in front of all these people watching, 3 people watching, okay? I'm like, Sydney, that's not a backhand. I'm thinking she's going to be like, Vince Lombardi, you are right. You have inspired me. I will show you what a backhand is from now on. But here's what she fashions my words to say. You are hitting backhands wrong. You don't know how to hit a backhand. And I'm thinking I'm firing up my partner. And we'll win a medal, and she's not fired up about it. Because the way I'm communicating is death to a 1. So I had to give a big old oopsie daisies after when I learned all this stuff. Right? Like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Okay, I was a terrible tennis partner for you. But how many other areas of life? Relationships, school. If I'm saying something And if I know whatever I receive, you're prone to receive this as your wrong, I've got to be very careful what I'm tossing you if I want to bring out life inside of you. Now, if I don't care, then I'll just throw you the grenade, okay? But if I care, all of a sudden I got to understand, okay, your death is being wrong. So your drive, the drive for a one, this is their motivation, is to do life the right way. They don't want to do it the right way. Let's dive into some more details about being a one. I wrote a bunch of these down. Let me just spit out a bunch of them. They're known for being perfectionists. You're probably an Enneagram type 1 if you identify with a lot of the following. You see the world in black and white. Yes and no, right or wrong, and you pretty much dislike anything in between or ambiguous. You don't like gray areas of life, all right? If you were constantly praised as a child for being a good boy or a good girl in school or at home or for complying with the rules. School rewards ones. Chore charts reward ones, okay? Maybe you always think that your work is not good enough and nowhere near perfect. If you're a type 1, you're going to spend way too much time on homework. And it's going to be good anyway, right? But you're going to think it's not good enough. Everyone else is going to be like, just turn it in. It's not that big of a deal. And when you say it's not that big of a deal to a 1, you're missing it. It's a huge deal. You feel that it's wrong to get angry and you do your best never to show it. Yet when you do, people still ask you, are you angry? You expect things to be neat, tidy, and organized. Like the car of a 1. It's clean. Probably even smells good. The bedroom of a 1, it's orderly. You want to stress out a 1? Tell the 1 to share a bathroom with a 4, okay? So we did with our girls for 18 years. A 1, sometimes you'll also fail to meet your own expectations of being neat, tidy, and organized. You're the type of person that says, excuse my mess. Everyone else is like, this looks like a good homekeeping magazine. This is crazy. You have a strong need to know the little details and fine print before you can move on and get things done. You're the rare type of person that's actually read an iTunes agreement, okay? You can scroll to the bottom and just click, I agree. People have labeled you with the terms OCD before, and it's mostly because of your strong need to have everything in order. You put 120% in everything that you do, but you still think it's not good enough. And because you feel that it's not good enough, you tend to procrastinate a lot until there's no choice left but to submit your imperfect work. That's what's crazy about 1s. They're not the first to, they might be the first to know it. They ain't going to turn it in real quick. And when you do, everyone says it's good work, even though you feel it still isn't good enough. You're always looking and thinking of how you can improve things or make things better. Sometimes you blurt comments out, unknowingly hurting people in the process. You find it quite hard to adapt to change until and unless you know all the details that you need. If you're leading a team at work, 1s can be super annoying in that meeting. You're you're laying it thick with vision, and they're asking detailed questions. You're like, I don't care. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about getting excited about me, okay? That's what this is about right now, right? And the 1's like, but how are we going to, what you know? You're like, okay. Is you have a very high self-control, and you feel that it's wrong to judge others, and you don't judge them, you're just commenting on how they might be able to improve. So, when someone, here's what's the problem. Here's a challenge with 1s. Challenge with the 1s is you don't think you're good enough. That's a challenge. And so you're always striving, and not to prove to others that you're good, because that's not your motivation. It's worse than that. It's to prove to yourself that you're good. And if you recognize that when you get in a tendency, you're like, oh, because that would stress you out. That would make you neurotic eventually. If you could never rest in God's divine design in your own life. And 1s need to hear this, you are good. You are inherently good. You're a gift from God. The world's better because of you. And so, when someone gives you a compliment, sometimes all you can think is they're just being nice. When someone's being a real case, sometimes you grit your teeth, go to your quiet place, remain polite, but you're never going to stoop to their level. You're not a fan of people cutting in line. You're not a fan of people breaking the rules in the traffic. When you pour cereal before they eat it, they evaluate the portion of the cereal that you pour out because the cereal bowl should be fair. You pay taxes on time. You don't cheat. Oftentimes, they feel they're the only responsible adult in the room, and you might feel that right now. Ones see things how they can be, and ones want things to be right. They want the world to be better. The gift is this: they see justice. When a one is healthy, they want to become a voice for those who are oppressed. They're going to see things that aren't right, and they're going to groan, and they're going to say, "No, we need this to change. We need to do something about this." Ones have a God-given gift of seeing what is just and what is fair, right? That's it. That's a gift. We see that in Malachi. What does the Lord require of you, right? To act justly, right? To love mercy. And so ones have this gift of God, but if you're not aware of your unique design, you'll be so disappointed in the rest of us schmucks that you'll be so mad you will miss out on God's gift for you because you'll be so confused as why no one else understands you. But you're a gift, and you're going to see things. You're going to see things way different than we see the world. And so your job is to be able to help complement and do these things. Here's a couple things about the ones. Their core need is to be perfect, which I don't know if you can sense a problem with that one. Okay, that's not super doable. And if that's your core need, then criticism is really tough for you to hear. Now, rarely do we like criticism. Very few of us do. But a ones especially do not. They're going to miss everything else we say. So if you're a parent of a one, real quick, side question that I would probably ask if I were here is, nature or nurture? Like, do you become this number, or did God give you this number? I don't know. They will say, I don't know, because technically you're not allowed to do research for people under 18 years of age. Okay, so they're going to say, we do not know. But you can recognize this very early on. I believe this personality style is the style you had to develop to cope because of your life. It's a survival mechanism, and the things that help you survive as a kid aren't necessarily the things that help you thrive as an adult. I'm going to say that again because I think there's something there. All of us had issues going on as a kid. Parent issues, environment issues, faith issues, right? The things that helped you survive that to get here are probably evident in this. But the things that helped you survive being a kid and reaching adulthood might be lousy tools for you as an adult. And it's an opportunity for us now to say, okay, this helped me get here. Now, how do I be the healthiest version that God created me to be? So anyway, so ones is we have this core need to be perfect. Second thing is this: they tend to focus on flaws. So they can become very negative. When they're very negative with themselves, eventually left unchecked, they become very negative with those around them. That's not who they are. That is not your label. That is not your lid. That is your light. Understand that. When I'm tending to be a pessimist, that means I have had a jaded viewpoint on those around me, not recognizing I have a gift for justice. I'm going to see things that other people don't see, and I can't get mad about that, right? Like a police officer, okay? A lot of police officers are Enneagram type 1s. It makes sense. I want justice, and I'm doing this because I want to, but you do it long enough, and it's very easy to become jaded because you're like, you know what? People are pretty predictable and they're doing this. I'm kind of sick of seeing this. And it could do something in your heart. And out of preservation, and I'm speaking out of my element here, but out of preservation, you tend to just be cautious about opportunities you're walking into because you're trying to be safe, right? It makes sense. It makes sense how people get there, like as an officer. It also makes sense how people get there as a one. If I'm disappointed and my teacher doesn't hold everyone else to the same standards, and this was in the syllabus, and you're not even, and God seems to reward the unjust as well, and eventually I'm just sour. I'm sour. So what I've got to do is recognize that, and we're going to give the antidote here. They're big on comparison often and short on compassion. Big on comparison, short on compassion. This is left unchecked. Now, again, it's not like I'm going to get to one number and this is all a fun number, okay? Is every number, what we're talking, like, again, remember the genesis of this? It's about our sins. So, like, right now we're not like, yes, this is awesome, bring it. I want more of this number. Is all of these numbers are this. Often a lot of people say, man, I don't know that I like my number. It's because we're talking about sin. Like, of course, when we see the root of it, it's a challenge. At the same time, you see the gift. You have the ability to see justice. Make great lawyers. Make great officers. Make great CPAs. Okay? You want someone super organized. You want people to be able to put on these kind of things. So here's a prescription for growth. Okay? But let me say this also about the ones before we get there. Ones can be offended easily. It's very hard for ones to apologize. So ones, here's one thing. Make sure you do. The best antidote for a one is apologize. And not apologize using shame on you stuff. Like I'm bad. But just like this. You know what? Here's what happened. And I apologize. And when you do that, that way you have joy. You're not mad at yourself, beating yourself up. You're going to already do more penance than any of us. Unfortunately, a lot of our numbers, we don't even recognize when we're sinning, okay? And you've got like, you're like over guilt. You're the type of person in church like, it's probably me. He's probably talking about me right now. And you're gonna take a lot of other people's guilt, okay? So here's a prescription for growth. Number one is this: relax. Joy isn't anything you need to judge. Just relax, okay? When I was a kid, I'd watch People's Court. It was awesome. Judge Wapner, every time the plaintiff shared, I'm like, oh, no, yeah, totally. They're going to totally nail the defendant. The defendant sounds like a jerk every single time. And then I'd hear the defendant blow my mind. I'm like, oh, wow. The plaintiff needs a spanking, okay? Every perspective seems right until you hear the other side. So as a one, you have a strong perspective. Strong perspective. Understand that everybody else has a story. So relax. You don't need to judge. Ones, you're going to tend to want everybody in church to measure up like you've been trying to before they fully accept the grace of God. And you would never say that, but you tend to feel that if unchecked. And so just begin to celebrate. Celebrate the partial victories in people's life. Celebrate another thing for ones. We'll get there. But smile. Smile. If you're a one, just practice that a lot in the next 24 hours. Smile. You'll scare people, okay? Just smile. Second thing is this. So you relax. Second thing is receive. Receive. Words of affirmation remind you that you are good. When someone gives you a compliment, let that rattle around in your soul. It's good. Third thing is this. Release. You're not in charge of other people. Hands, palms up. That's what you do when you're stressed. Seriously, just everyone practice this right now. Palms up, palms up. They say that does something to your heart rate. It's weird. Everyone smile and palms up. Smile and palms up. When you do that as a one, literally, when I get stressed, I just do that. It's hard for me to keep being nasty. Because I look so silly. Once. Start that in the morning. Now, again, if you want to go weird Far East meditation, whatever that's where this stuff gets weird, okay? Be as weird as you want. But I would just say this, just the psychosomatic portion of this, remember, I am going to relax. I'm not in charge. I'm not anybody else's judge. I am a voice of justice. I'm not a voice of judgment. And when I can stay in that lane, man, God's going to use me. So that's ones. So let's go to type two. Oh, a one in the Bible. Real quick. Paul the Apostle. Paul the Apostle, great dude. He'll remind you often how good he was. I have done this, I have done this. I was circumcised on the 8th day. I'm Hebrews. I've been really good, really good. However, I'm a chief of sinners. Like, yeah, you really sound like it. Right? But what's crazy is Paul the super apostle. Paul the apostle called by God. Paul, child of God. As he begins to write his letters, and later chronologically he writes his letters, seems like his edge is worn off. Paul, hey, I gotta confront Peter. I don't know if you all heard about this, but Peter, he wasn't acting the way he should act. I just want everyone to know about this, and I hope this is in the Holy Bible one day. We've got a record of Paul's rebuke of Peter in the Bible. I bet Peter's like, thanks, bro. Really appreciate that call out, right? Why? Why is Paul doing that? Yeah, can't not. It's Paul. Paul was great. He brought law to the church when it was a mess. He's like, here's what we're going to do. And he would lay out the case. It's great. Paul's biggest challenge, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was the dude. He had it all together, and it was so maddening to him that there were people who claimed to be of the way that weren't doing what he did. I'd kill him, and he did. He did. And then God knocked him off his high horse and humbled him and became a voice to the Gentiles, the ones who didn't deserve. Awesome story of a guy who has justice in mind, struggles with a little bit of a kind of going on. But, anyway. So on. Let's go to type 2, the helper. The helper, the helper, the helper. In Scripture, there's a story of Martha, Mary and Martha. Mary wants to just sit at Jesus' feet, and Martha's like, no, we must serve, and she gets mad that Mary is not serving as well. She's gonna be a kind of a placeholder of what represents some of these things. The fear of a 2, and I'm married to a 2. Leanne is a 2. Okay, 2. Pretty strong 1 as well. Okay, so 2. So I've been learning this for the last 24 years. The fear of a 2 is not being needed or appreciated. If you have a 2, how many of you are 2s? Anybody? Any 2s? Any 2s? We got 2s, 2s. Okay? All right? The fear of a 2 is no one needs me, no one notices me. 2s love to help. Churches, PTA organizations, any volunteer, heavy organization, thrives on 2s. 2s are all over the place on your serving teams, okay? Because they love to help people. It's great. But here's what we need to understand. They're not necessarily serving because they love the activity. They believe in it, but they also want to be noticed. And when you understand what they're really communicating and what they're hearing, is you cannot walk by a 2. Let's pick on church for a second. A 2 is going to be helping serve the coffee all morning long, getting there early, doing a great job, the nicest person serving the coffee. And if the pastor walks by and doesn't say, hey, thank you for serving the coffee, that's the conversation at lunch. They didn't even notice me. Like, nobody notices me around here, right? You're like, what? I think they do. But it didn't feel, I don't feel appreciated, I don't feel needed, known. So let's hit a couple of these things. Darkness for a 2. I don't know if I went the right order. Did I skip order? Okay. Darkness for a 2. And this one is surprising too. Pride. Because 2s do not look like proud people. They are serving. They are in the position of humility often. But pride, here's where it's tricky. Not pride like I think I'm better than you. But pride of, wait a second, you didn't notice me? I want to be noticed. Now they don't want to speak a lot of times. They want to be behind the scenes, but they do want you to say, hey, let's take a minute and let's thank the people that made this happen. They're going to be like, no, but they're going to be like, okay, I like this right here. This is my fuel right here. And that's not a bad thing. It's just the way we're predictably wired. Is we want to be known, and when we don't get that fuel, the thing that pops out of nowhere is this arrogance, but not arrogance like I think I'm better than. It's the opposite, but it's still arrogance. Arrogance like nobody knows me, nobody likes me. And what it is this magnification on me, poor me, poor me. So when you think of pride, don't think of it like this, peacock strutting. Think of it like someone who absolutely can't get over the fact that people aren't noticing them. And it comes out like a pity party vibe. The death to it too is losing relationship. COVID, twos, was terrible for you. You need people. You need relationships. You need people around all the time. You'll come up with excuses to serve people because you want to be around people. Some of us come up with excuses not to serve people because we don't want to be around people. Some of us, COVID was our dream. Hello, type 5. Okay, is true. Is like you can live on that. Like COVID is like welcome to your world. Everybody else got a taste of it. Twos right now, honestly, and I say this like teasing, but I'm not. I'm concerned about you right now. This has been a really rough 15 months. When people can't see your face, when people can't come over to your house, when people can't join in a small group with you, a lot of us can cope with that fine, and we don't understand why that's such a big deal. It's a big deal. That's been tough for you. It's very important that we get relationships, because that's death. The drive for it, too, is feeling loved and valued. Loved and valued. How do you know you're a 2? You do the dishes at someone else's party, okay? You're like, no, just let me help for a little bit. Just let me help. I'm just going to help. You're preparing and cleaning are your favorite parts of the party that you plan, okay? Sometimes it's tough in between the preparing and cleaning, the actual party. You're like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I just sit here and talk to humans? What do I do? I should be, like, for a 2, it's very tough for you to watch a movie. You got to be folding something, doing something. You got this guilt of, I'm not doing enough right now. Like, I don't feel guilty not doing anything. That's fine with me, right? That's actually my goal. But a 2, like, stresses out, and then anxiety starts trigger. Acts of hospitality and service, such as opening their homes, entertaining guests, hosting dinners, exercising generosity, offering words of encouragement. 2s are God's love letter to our world. Serving the church, our regular rhythm for 2s. They tend to be energized by deep friendships. 2s, listen to me. This is what's sad. It's sad. You will rarely have as good of friends to you as you are to them. 2s, you value your friends so well, and the bummer is it doesn't mean you're not valuable when they don't treat you the same. It means they're not wired like you. And you have a unique gift of God to value friendships, and it will feel like a lonely world if you're stuck there. But when you recognize that, the quickest thing is to serve someone. Otherwise, you'd be like, nobody likes me. You get on social media and you're like, everybody's at a party and I'm not invited. When I see it on social media, I'm like, thank you for not inviting me, okay? Like a 2 is like, do they not like me? A 2 is constantly playing with Play-Doh. What did they mean by that? What do you... And they fill in the gap with defeat. They're lovers, adapters, very indecisive often. Taco Bell's overwhelming. Like, what do I want? You go first. I'll decide. Comforting, relationally driven, emotionally connected. They're givers. They're mothering and smothering. Martyrs, sensitive to criticism, better friends than their own friends, always serving. They want to help you move. That's crazy. There are people like that. They will miss Christmas because they're too busy preparing for it. So they go to bed thinking about relationships, and they get up in the morning thinking about relationships. Their drug of choice is social media. They form identity through relationships. They believe if I'm okay, you're okay. They celebrate every birthday, every anniversary. Like, they're into that. They save the cards, even. They love customer service. They're great at frontline. They're very good at supportive. Hen, like in a good keeping things in order, keeping people the vibe. It's like Michael from The Office. Would I rather be feared or loved? he says easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. Okay, that's a 2. 2s want you to tell them every single day that they're loved. That's overwhelming to me. Okay, it's just what 2s want every single day. You're loved. You're beautiful today. You are. Oftentimes they'll do whatever they need to do to be seen by you. And if we're not careful, we'll take advantage of 2s. 2s are driven by guilt often. They live the should life. So one of the things we work on in our home is we don't say the word should. We don't have people over because we should have them over. We have people over because we want to have them over. Like should is like a poor reason. We don't serve because we should serve. We don't bring this to our neighbor because we should bring it to our neighbor. We do it if we want to, right? We do it if we desire to, right? It doesn't mean we don't do it, but because if we're doing it out of guilt, then that's the deal. So here's prescription for growth. 1 is check your tank. Pouring out your life is very draining. One of my memorable moments here as a youth pastor is we went to summer camp once with a big bus, brand new bus. Do you remember that bus? Brand new bus to us. And it's big. Obviously, you should take diesel, right? So we filled it up with diesel. Apparently, not all big rigs take diesel, and this one was in that category. Okay? And so we got about halfway home from Ritzville, and this is before cell phones, and so it was a rough week of youth ministry, right? And realizing this is when you put the wrong tank in something, you're not going to get the results you want. 2s need their tank filled. Check the tank. You weren't created for service, you were created for relationship. Second thing is check your motives. Don't should all over everybody, okay? Is check your motives. Don't should all over everybody. Why are you doing it? 2s, your inner need is to be needed. So don't do the right thing with the wrong motive. How many people need me? How many people love me? I don't need to make a Facebook post to prove that I did something for somebody. Sometimes I'm just going to serve to serve. So whose sake am I doing this? 3, check your schedule. The word no is allowed. The word no is allowed. So 2s, here's your homework. Say no to something. What do you say no to? Something you feel like you should do. When you get to the word should, just punt. Just say, no. Just relax, enjoy. And know this, you're God's love letter. 1's perfectionist, 2's the helpers. 1's have the ability to see right. The 1's have the ability to speak out for justice. 2's have the ability to be able to be God's love letter and serve people like no other. Here's what I know about Leanne as a 2. Leanne loves people in a way that, man, I can only dream of. She's phenomenal at it. People at our church and our town and our environment, they feel the love from God every time they see her. It's just true. Leanne rarely feels that she's giving that. So as a 2, if you're like that, that's going to be a natural tendency. Understand that. So you don't have your metrics based on how many people thanked you for being a good friend, how many people remembered you on social media, how many people said something to you. You just say, man, I served God as I served others, and I'm good with that. And when you recognize that, your anxiety is going to go up when you don't get these other things. Just check yourself. All these things. When your stress starts going off, when people are doing the wrong thing, when people don't notice me doing something, when I start getting stressed, that's when I just chill. And I palms up, I smile, and I say, God, thank you for making me unique. Help me to be a gift to others, not to be stuck in this comparison thing. Let me be driven by purpose. So we're going to park that for tonight, and we're going to hit the remaining numbers tomorrow night. We'll talk about some interactions. We got